I can find ways to be happy that aren't necessarily tied to this one number. And I know that's basic as hell, but actually implementing it has a profound effect.
Hey there, I'm Matt Diavella, and welcome to my short form podcast, 3 Rules. Each episode, I ask a guest to share 3 rules that help them find success and happiness. Today, I'm joined by Cam Walker, illustrator, author, and YouTuber, who's better known online as Struthless. His new book is called Doom and Bloom: The Case for Creativity in a World Hooked on Panic. You were at the top of my list when it comes to people that I wanted to interview. And it's not just because you're one of the only people I know within 1,000 miles.
You're at the top of my accessible list.
Yeah.
Oh, there were plenty of people I couldn't get.
Yeah, there's at least like 6 or 7 people on my list.
Yeah, I'm a safe silver medal, baby.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we could make it work. And we got you while you're here in Sydney.
Up, man. Yeah.
Let's get right into it. What's rule number 1 for you?
I'm going to call it the RIGBY rule.
Okay.
Ooh, that's
nice.
got a fun name. Yeah, baby. All right. So this idea came when I was watching, you know that show Silicon Valley? Yeah. Pied Piper, all that sort of stuff. So yeah. You know when 2 of the characters are bitching about Richard and like they're like, oh, Richard is great, but... And then they want to say the thing that's annoying them about Richard, you know? It's like, oh, yeah, Richard is great, but he's been a real dick right now. Richard is great, but he's, being really selfish. And they're like, oh, man, this is making this conversation kind of long right now, So we need a patch. We need a shortcut for Richard is great, but. And so they started saying RIGBY. And they're like, oh, RIGBY, he sucks. RIGBY, I freaking can't stand him. Anyway, so I always like that. That always stuck with me as something funny. It's like a good software engineering joke, but it ended up very much changing my life for the better. And I mean this in the sense of, I don't know, my married life, my life as a dad. But yeah, so me and Felicity, my wife, after our daughter was born, as you would know, it is an incredibly chaotic and stressful time. And there are a lot of opportunities in that time for, like communication errors that could blow up into something which isn't a communication error, basically like a fight, right? And like non-violent communication, conceptually, it's like, it's a bit exhausting if you want to just continuously like therapy speak to your partner, being like, hi, I understand that right now I am feeling tired and my need for sleep is not being met. How can I all that sort of stuff. So it felt like when we were super sleep deprived, it was pretty much a minefield to either be misinterpreted, to say something that you didn't want to say, because there were so many times when you want to say like, hey, I just want to check that you turn the oven off, but I'm not asking you in a way that's attacking you. I'm not asking you to patronize you. I am not asking you because I think you left it on. I'm asking you because I am anxious. So we summarized that entire thing with the word RIGBY. So it'd be like, RIGBY, did you lock the car? RIGBY, did you get nappies from the shops? And what could have been a personal attack in so many scenarios just ended up being so easy. And what could have been like a long and drawn out therapizing speech also just became really easy.
What are you telling your partner in that moment?
So it's like a conversational safe word, right? But I think what you're telling your partner in that moment is, I completely trust you. I'm not saying this because I don't trust you. I'm not saying this to condescend. I'm not saying this because of anything that's related to you. This is the most impersonal thing. I'm saying this because I am anxious about something. However, because you're super duper tired, you might misinterpret it. It might come off as a personal attack. And I want to neutralize that now with one word: mutual understanding. But of course, the acronym for that was way too long. So.
That's it. Yeah. So RIGBY.
RIGBY, exactly.
And how often do you find yourself using this phrase?
Me and Felicity probably use it upwards of 10 times a day.
Really?
Yeah,
so still to this day?
Oh, I reckon it has saved hours and hours and hours and hours of over communication of, anything that could have escalated to anything. It's the best thing. The best thing conversationally.
Do you have like a specific example, like a recent one where you might have used that you can think of?
Yesterday would have been an example. Like one of us had to look after our daughter and the other one had to go to the shops. Which one do you want to do? RIGBY, I don't care. And it's like, there is no part of you that's trying to be polite. There's no part of you that's trying to manipulate the situation. Not that either of us really do that, but it's just like, I just genuinely don't care which one I get. So
100%. Yeah. It's actually like impossible. And I don't know how we survived it. And actually Nat and I talk about this all the time, where people will ask you that. They're like, oh my God, 10 months of no sleep. How did you survive? And she's like, we didn't. We did not survive. Like, we didn't survive as the same people.
No.
We are very different people.
No, I need a funeral for the guy I was.
100%, dude. It's fucking bad, dude. It's hard. It's so hard. Like,
so gnarly.
And I didn't think it was going to be that bad.
Nah, man, nah. And I go into everything with like, probably like too much confidence. And so I was humbled, my brother.
And it's probably like, it's a good thing, I think, to have some confidence going into like one of the craziest periods of your entire life. Like, but like, to your point, in those moments, you don't have patience. You don't have mental clarity. You are just stressed the fuck out, and you still love your partner, obviously, but you just don't have the same level of patience that you once did. This podcast is 3 rules, so let's move on to number 2.
The second rule that I'd like to say is ask yourself, how is this the best thing that has ever happened to me? And probably the most notable time for me was almost 2 years ago to the day. I got completely sober, and it started because I made an absolute dick of myself. Not just on this night, but honestly for about 15 years. But this one particular evening, I don't know, man. Like, like the Sunday scaries, like the shame was so intense. It wasn't just the shame of that, but it was the shame of everything. Because I don't know, there's something about being hungover in your 30s that is so depressing. Or like being hungover, and instead of seeing a young man in the mirror, I see this bald fuck. And I'm like, oh, shouldn't you have your life sorted by now? And in the midst of this intense hangover and shame, I was like, oh, what was that question? What's that question? Oh, that's it. How is this the best thing that has ever happened to me? And I was like, well, the only way that this would have a legitimate answer is if I never got drunk again, never did drugs again, never did any of this again. And I committed to the bit.
Was that a rule before?
It was a rule before that moment. And I'd tried it, and I'd tried to, like, I've been trying to sort of quit drugs and alcohol for the past, however long before that, but nothing ever seemed to stick. It was only ever used in light situations, like you lost a client, or like, a bunch of money went missing, or whatever it happened to be. It's like, how's this the best thing? Okay, well, because now I'm motivated to do this, or now I'll do this, or I'll make a commitment to here. But being able to use it for, arguably a top 5 demon, it was a game changer, man.
Yeah. How do you go for attempt 42? Like, how do you go for that attempt and tell yourself, like, this time it's going to be different? Like,
that's such a good question. So there were a few things. So I really, really relished in the shame, which might sound counterintuitive, but I really felt it. And I really, really kind of beat myself up. So there was that. So firstly, feeling an insane amount of shame. The second one was attaching sobriety to my daughter and making a promise to her. And I could break promises to myself till the cows come home. Oh my God. I could just beat myself up for fun, dude. But I could never do that to her. And so externalizing it and saying, no, you'll never ever see me drunk. You'll never ever see me high. You'll never ever see any of this. That was pretty huge. And then the third one, oh man, there's so many, but yeah, fuck it, I'll give you 5. I've thought about sobriety a lot. So third one, we'll say really associating drugs and alcohol with poison, like understanding that it is poison and understanding that this is all you have, and that whatever's going on physically is going to what's the word, like a ripple effect, ripple into everything else. Fourth one I'd say is replacement, not removal. So this is a pretty big idea in sobriety. It's basically like, if let's say you want to quit drinking beers, but you drink beers at the pub, worst thing you could do would be to go to the pub and just not order beers, because all of a sudden all you can see is the gap. You can just see the absence, the lack of beers, and you're just going to sit there miserable. You watch your old friends, your drinking buddies all getting drunk, and you'll be like, damn man, life sure is terrible.
It's just going to be a matter of time before you break.
Exactly. So yeah, the idea of like removal is pretty depressing. Whereas the idea of replacing that, I don't know, tango class or, whatever it is that gets you.
It's fulfilling the social element too,
Completely.
which is a big part of why you go to the pub.
Yeah, 100%. And and then I think also having role models was really big for me as well. So I was mentioning, Osher randomly had the Bachelor host become my sobriety sponsor.
As you do.
Yeah, just naturally. Yeah, the guy from Australian Idol. Yeah, he's going to help me get clean. Cool, dude.
Were you guys friends for a while? Or?
Yeah. And because he is something like 15 years sober, and part of AA, which I never did, but he did. Part of that is once you help yourself, you help other people. Sort of the airplane mask thing. And then I ended up helping a mate through it. So it was like,
that's really special.
Yeah, and he's been sober for over a year now.
That's amazing, man.
Thanks, bro.
I'm going to be back with the third and final rule in a moment, but first, one of the ways I'm supporting this podcast is through Patreon. By becoming a patron, you get access to the full unedited episodes of the show, which for this specific episode is 3 times longer as Cam and I dive further into parenting and creativity. I feel like we're in a very similar place right now where it feels like we've taken a huge fucking step back.
Yes.
As a patron, you'll also get additional unused footage from my YouTube videos and access to a members-only area where you can ask me questions for my Patreon-exclusive AMA podcast. And most importantly, you'll feel good knowing that you're supporting a creator you like. And really, what other incentive do you need? Simply go to patreon.com/MattDiavella to support the show. That's patreon.com/MattDiavella. There's a link down in the description below. Thanks for considering. All right, cool. Let's move on to rule number 3.
Rule 3, rig the game so you are always feeling some sort of progress. I know how to pronounce his name, which is like 80% of why I'll say it. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
You're very smart.
Yeah, the grandfather of flow. No, I learned that. I learned that very recently. Yeah, so, the ideas that he put forward as the flow guy, which, a big one was that the most motivating thing that people have to push themselves forward is that they are feeling a tangible sense of progress. If they can see that they are progressing and progressing towards a meaningful goal, then that can be more motivating than money in certain contexts, things like that. So I have been thinking about this a lot lately because I'm feeling like there are certain things that I would love to see progressing or getting bigger or smaller in my life or like whatever it is that I'm not seeing any progress with. And that can be the most demoralizing thing when you're in the messy middle of a project and you're just hacking and hacking and hacking. At the end of the day, you're just like, I feel further from the freaking goal. And I think a lot of persistence, a lot of life is about how well you can make it through those valleys and how well you can actually, really push forward when life is just kicking you. And life's been kicking me a bit. So the thing that I have taken a lot of solace in is categorizing my life into different parts wherein I can win particular games or feel progress in different categories. And that might be an overly complicated way of saying, when I'm not making money, I can at least, run. There's this beautiful Donald Glover lyric, and it came from, before he really blew up as Childish Gambino, and it definitely came from recession-era blog rap, which I think speaks to it. But he goes, I was never worried about my money being empty because when it was empty, I was still happy. And I really related to that, probably because I heard it in post-recession. But I was like, yeah, I can find ways to be happy that aren't necessarily tied to this one number. And I know that's basic as hell, but actually implementing it, which is also basic as hell, has a profound effect. So it's like, if my money is going down, if other things are going down, no one can take away my physical freedom. No one can take away, this particular skill or the amount of books that I read. There are things that I can win even when I'm not winning. And something about that, I don't know, can be really comforting when life isn't going too good. I've found a lot of solace in reading and researching because I'm like, well, no one can unread a book for me, or no one can unrun a kilometer for me. So yeah, running's obviously a huge thing for me. But once I've read something and I'm like, okay, I have this new reservoir of knowledge. That's kind of cool. I really like this. Or I've been getting better at illustration. And I've been getting better at painting and watercolors and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, no one can unpaint a painting for me. I control this start to finish. The part where I think it runs into hot water is probably, getting into the nitty gritty of, for example, being a creator where it's like, yeah, but no one can see that. Does it count? Does it really count? Because, you kind of get brainwashed by social media into thinking that all creativity is only valid if it gets some sort of algorithmic popularity.
Yeah.
And even if I look at something that hasn't hit and I'm like, that's the best thing I've ever made, there's still that voice, that brainwash voice. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
You didn't get a million views on that.
Yeah, because you're a loser.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, technically that. And there's there's like so much evidence to support that voice online. You know what I mean? And it's like, Jesus Christ, man, can I just like flick this switch off and just like enjoy myself for once? No. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
No, but like, yeah, like things like running, things like skilling up.
But I think that one of the things I think that works really well about that I've experienced is that it is through doing that we can find the most joy. I think I was trying to think my way through this for a very long time where I'm like, what do I want to do? What do I want to create next? What do I want to make? And I'm just like sitting in a room and I'm giving myself space from my work because I needed that. I needed to step away from it.
But you're also not really, because you're still trying to attack that problem strategically.
That's true. Yeah. I didn't actually give myself a chance.
You got to properly like leave it and let your brain like do it subconsciously. Like, why would you do that? How could you do that? No one can do that, right?
Nobody can do that.
No.
But I did like but then it was like once I felt like I was ready for it, and I just went to a cafe and I just started writing.
Really?
And that was it. And I journaled. It was like just word vomit. I was just whatever I could think of and whatever I was going through. It was just stream of consciousness, and I just wrote. And the first day I didn't feel significantly better, but then it was like as I kept showing up and I kept writing every day, and then I started reading and going to the gym more. It was the act of doing. And not just keeping myself busy, but to your point, progressing and feeling like I'm building something and I'm working towards something that made me let go of these ideas of like, oh, I'm actually so far behind, or like, oh my God, where would my life be if I hadn't hired 10 people?
Oh my God.
You know? And so I think that
the lament.
Yeah. And so then it's like, but I think it's like, this is what I think a lot of creators have in common, and whatever it is that you're creating, it's like you I think find fulfillment and your mind goes calm when you're in those moments of doing.
Absolutely. Oh, completely.
And that's flow, right?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's 100% flow. Yeah, it's also like what I like to refer to as almost like creativity as therapy. Yeah, when you're like in this creative state or in this flow state where you're like, and nothing can bother me because I am in the happy place now.
Yeah. Cam, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh man, thanks for your company.
If you want to get these rules summarized into a weekly newsletter, you can subscribe at mattdiavella.com/3rules. Thanks to Cam for taking the time to chat. To get more from him, simply type Struthless into your Google search bar. See you next time.